Air battles of the 20th century. How did aircraft become instruments of death from above? How did the Vietnamese manage to defeat the US Air Force? And who passed on the secret Soviet aviation developments to the CIA? It is hard to believe, but at the beginning of the 20th century, no one even considered the idea of aerial combat. Aircraft were solely used for reconnaissance and observation. The pioneers of military aviation were the small, young nations, pilots from the United Italy and Bulgaria. In the Balkan War against the Ottoman Empire, they were the first to bomb not only ground targets but also the Turkish fleet from the air. What were the grand air battles of the last century like? How did the Vietnamese pilots manage to defeat the superior forces of the US Air Force? How could one person influence the outcome of an entire battle? This is the Blériot XI, the first aircraft in the world to undertake a combat mission. In 1911, Italian pilots circled above enemy troops during the Italo-Turkish War. The Percalvi biplane, covered in fabric, was a lightweight machine. From a great height, it could observe, photograph, and report on the enemy's movements and positions. Photo reconnaissance was considered the sole task of aviators before World War I. However, everything changed when pilots started carrying cannonballs, metal bars, and even weights on board for reconnaissance instead of cameras. They either fired from a rifle or carried a Nagant revolver. Alternatively, they performed aerobatics that created an air current strong enough to force the enemy aircraft into a spin and crash. Bloody April is the term experts use to describe the period from April 1st to May 5th, 1917. The German Air Force destroyed more than 300 British aircraft. In contrast, the British managed to shoot down only 60 German fighters. This was made possible by the synchronizer, an invention by Anton Fokker, an aviation engineer from the Netherlands. German aircraft were equipped with this innovation. The gun fired precisely when the propeller was not in front of the machine gun's barrel. The synchronizer enabled firing through the propeller. The legend of the invincible German Air Force was shattered during World War II. On July 10, 1940, the Battle of Britain began. It was the first battle in history where only aircraft took part. Hitler dreamed of air superiority. He wanted to destroy the British Air Force and land ground troops on the English coast. The Germans lost the Battle of Britain. Incidentally, the first radar stations built on the British coast played a crucial role here. They provided timely warnings of upcoming German raids. Soon after this battle, Germany attacked the USSR. Massive air attacks on Moscow began just a month later. In November 1941 alone, 45 air raid warnings were recorded. Over 6 months, from July to the end of December, more than 7,000 Nazi aircraft attempted to break through to the capital. However, only 229 reached their target. Soviet aces met the enemy 200 to 300 kilometers away from the city. Thanks to this tactic, major destruction and mass casualties were avoided. The victory and defeat of the German Luftwaffe depended to a large extent on one person. Reichsmarshal of Aviation and personal friend of Hitler, Hermann Göring. He took full responsibility for preparing Germany for air warfare. While the fascists created increasingly advanced fighter jets, the British, and later the Americans, began producing giant bombers, Lancasters, and B-29 flying fortresses. This was a completely new class of weapon. In the second half of the war, armadas of these huge Allied aircraft systematically erased German cities and military factories from the face of the earth. The German advantage in the air was over, and with it, the victories of the German land army became a thing of the past. The Vietnam War marked a new phase in the history of military aviation. Vietnamese pilots proved that victory does not belong to those with the most aircraft, but to those who know how to use them. In 1965, the Americans began bombing Vietnam. The Yankees supported French troops who were trying to maintain control over their former colony. The numerical superiority of Western air forces was evident, but the Vietnamese pilots came up with their own tactics. They approached from the direction of the sun and, as a rule, from the clouds. and in areas where the Americans had no radar stations. They swarmed in like mosquitoes from behind and attacked enemy aircraft. From 1965 to 1973, the Vietnamese Air Force destroyed 3 times as many aircraft as they lost themselves. Experts are convinced that the Vietnamese held complete, unconditional victory over the U.S. Air Force in their airspace. But there have been instances in history when even a single person could influence the outcome of an entire air battle. Adolf Georgievich Tolkachev, a Soviet engineer and specialist in aviation radar. From 1979 to 1986, he worked for the CIA. In 6 years, Tolkachev managed to pass on 54 top-secret developments to the United States of America. This is how the West gained access to the latest electronic flight control system for MiGs and devices to bypass radar stations. For the damage the agent caused to the Soviet Union, American intelligence agents gave him the nickname Brilliant. The border between Syria, Israel, and Lebanon. This is one of the places where real battles between fighter jets take place. Experts are convinced the massive defeat of the Syrian Air Force in 1982 during the Arab-Israeli War was directly linked to Adolf Tolkachev's espionage. In 1982, when Israel attacked the Syrian group, they already knew all the frequencies on which the air defense systems worked, and most importantly, the sights of the fighter jets. The sights of the Syrian fighter jets could no longer see anything. Around 350 aircraft were involved in the conflict on both sides. In individual battles, up to 200 combat vehicles were engaged at the same time. In total, the Syrian Air Force lost around 80 Soviet-made fighter jets during this time, according to various estimates. The Israeli side did not lose a single aircraft. No more large-scale battles involving aviation have taken place in the world. During one of the most well-known military conflicts of recent times, the Second Persian Gulf War, Saddam Hussein kept most of his air force in underground bunkers to preserve it. Experts believe this is all about the price of fighter jets. Patrolling airspace and striking ground targets is much cheaper than engaging in real aerial combat. What do you think about it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion is very important to me. Don't forget to give me a like if you liked it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.